We are living in an era of seismic challenges. Our global food system faces never-before-seen stresses, from the climate crisis, population growth, and fractured supply chains. But might these shocks to our system actually be a catalyst for positive change? This is just so incredible. I'm on a journey to witness for myself. Oh, look at this! How farmers, scientists, and innovators are radically reimagining how we grow our food and produce it. I feel like I'm in a space station and super perfect lettuce has just magically appeared from the heavens. It's a quest to meet the greatest challenges that are facing humanity.
We have to wake up and we have to feed the world. That's a big job.
And create a new and better food future. This episode, the waste chain. What innovators are doing to improve our food systems.
The food will be vacuum slingshot all the way to the basement of the hotel.
And prevent valuable ingredients and resources from going to waste.
Yeah, you potentially can lose the lot.
We have created the idea of waste because in nature, nothing is wasted.
There are distribution centers like this all over the world, bringing in foods from the four corners of the planet and distributing them to restaurants, retailers, and people at home. But what if I was to take up to 40% of the food here? So right from that back wall through spices and herbs, right up here up to pumpkins, and just chuck it all in the bin. You'd probably be outraged, but that's exactly what happens globally in our food system through food loss and food waste every single year. To put that into numbers, it's been estimated that 1.3 billion tons of food produced for human consumption never gets eaten. That's 1/3 of all the calories created, costing approximately $2.6 trillion annually, all going to waste. Many people have argued that if we could simply find solutions to this enormous global problem, we could solve world hunger because we already produce enough food to feed the planet's population. I want to see for myself where loss and waste occurs across our food chain, from on the farm through to distribution, processing, and retail. But first, I need to understand some basics. Pete, hello. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Pete Pearson is the Senior Director for Food Loss and Waste at the World Wildlife Fund. Help me navigate the terminology here. Food loss and food waste sound incredibly similar, but they are different terms with very different meanings.
So in really simple terms, the differences between food loss and food waste, or food loss is characterized as the losses that happen at the beginning of the supply chain. Things like losses on farms, maybe loss in transport, loss as you're distributing product. When we look at food waste, that's a function of more of a consumption side. Maybe it's a banquet that over-prepares so much food and they have to throw it away. So waste is a function more of like consumption gone awry.
And where does most of this loss or waste occur in the food supply chain?
I think one of the biggest things we need to realize is it's largely unmeasured. We don't consistently measure loss or waste. We don't report on it. And I think that's the really exciting part of this, is when we measure, we better inform ourselves and we start to understand the true impact that food has on the planet. What we've been finding is when you do start to measure loss and waste, you identify all these opportunities to save money, to become more profitable. Waste does not exist. That is a human construct. We have created the idea of waste because in nature, nothing is wasted. Everything is circular. And we've kind of messed things up. It's about the decisions that humans make that can prevent loss and waste if we design things better, right? If we develop better partnerships, if all of the actors in the supply chain take responsibility for food loss and waste, then we can really make a difference, right?
Stage 1 of the waste chain is the farm. Here, any number of hazards can put a farmer's hard work at risk of being wasted, from pests and diseases to extreme weather. Even if a crop successfully survives the harvest, there's still a risk of food loss when in storage. You must be Robert.
Yes, good
Otherwise,
morning.
I've just wandered into the wrong field.
Welcome.
Robert Neal runs a 533-hectare cereal farm in the Scottish Borders. And each year, storing his harvest comes with a giant risk. Well, that's a lot of grain.
At harvest time, this bay was full right to the end, 1,000 tonne in each bay. So
3 meters above me.
Yeah, right to the top. 3 bays, 3,000 tonne in this store.
Wow. But with so much grain being stored for long periods of time, protecting it is an ongoing battle. Maintaining optimum temperature and moisture levels for these massive stores is a fine art. And once it's in here, I mean, this is really dried, and seeds are biologically designed to keep dry and preserved for a long period of time. In a sealed shed like this, how long are we looking that this could be stored for?
It could be stored in here indefinitely. It's putting it in the store in the correct manner. It needs to be below 14% moisture.
What happens if it goes above 14?
Well, mold can start growing, it starts to heat, and then germination goes, a whole host of reasons that would be rejected, and then I've lost thousands of pounds.
So essentially, this could be just a giant compost heap.
Yep, you potentially can lose the lot.
Regular testing for temperature and humidity is a laborious process, using what's known as a grain spear, which Robert has been executing for years. So it's like a hypodermic needle. You're going right to the bottom and then taking a sample, not from the surface, but within the pile.
Yeah.
And that's where it would start to go off?
In the middle, the core is the vulnerable part.
Once collected from the center, the grain is loaded into a monitor to make sure the moisture is no higher than 14% when it enters the food chain. Do you know, it's amazing for me to think that literally hundreds of lorry loads of food could go off just like that within as short a space as 24 hours. And testing it is just so unbelievably labor-intensive. So fortunately, Robert's working with another team literally just around the corner on an even more cutting-edge solution. Dr. Lorenzo Conti is the founder and developer of Crover, a time-saving tool that can reduce the losses suffered in grain stores. Whoa, Lorenzo, I found you.
Hi, James. Come on over.
I'm surprised you haven't drowned in this. I've got enough grain in each shoe to make a loaf of bread. Huh. So, what am I here to see? Lorenzo has invented the world's first granular drone that can move through cereals whilst measuring the temperature and moisture of the entire pile to identify critical hotspots. Can I have a closer look? Is it safe for me to pick up in some way?
Yeah, go on, James.
It's not going to bite me. So, ooh. So all of these fins are moving independently in and out.
They are, yes.
Oh, this is amazing. So its burrowing mechanism literally just works by fins that come in and out and can twist in independent directions. It's kind of beautifully simple. And you're controlling this through an app at the moment.
Yeah, so we're trying to make it autonomous so that someone would eventually get a picture like this, where they can just see a 3D map of the conditions within the bulk and identify a problem.
That's almost like a 3D ultrasound, a model of like an X-ray of the bin, and you can see exactly where any hotspots would be.
Exactly.
As Crover crawls through the grains, its movement also helps aerate the cereal to help maintain its quality. So it sounds like even I could figure out how to use this.
Yes.
You know where I'm going
Would you
with
like
this,
to have a
right?
go?
Absolutely. This is what it's all about, right. Okay, so there's only 4 controls here, so it's pretty straightforward. So let's get it to bury itself. Oh, wow. You know it's user-friendly if even a botanist can do it. You know, to me, it's incredible that this little plastic machine that looks kind of like a hairdryer could potentially save millions of tons of grain all around the world every single year, allowing us to boost yields without using a single extra acre of land or a single extra litre of water. It's transformative stuff. The grain robot is just one of the innovations that could reduce loss at the farm stage of the food chain. Next, I want to look at stage 2 of our waste chain, distribution. It's been estimated that 14% of all food produced, a value close to $400 billion is lost each year between harvest and retail due to inadequate transport, storage, and packaging. This figure is even higher in less developed regions, such as sub-Saharan Africa, where it's thought between 40 to 60% of post-harvest fresh produce, rich in vital calories essential for good health, perishes before it reaches a consumer. But Nemeka Ikegwonu believes the solution lies in refrigeration that can work in the fields and markets, even if a reliable electricity infrastructure isn't in place.
So Cold Hubs is a 100% solar-powered walk-in cold room. It is deployed in farms and marketplaces to enable smallholder farmers, retailers, and wholesalers to extend the shelf life of perishable food from 2 days to 21 days.
Creating an almost seamless cold chain link between farm and market, each shipping container-sized mobile cold room can keep up to 3 tons of food fresh, allowing farmers and traders a flexible pay-as-you-go solution to preventing food waste.
So in the north of Nigeria, we built cold rooms in farm clusters because the north is actually the food belt of Nigeria. Then down south, we built cold hubs in marketplaces because most of the food coming from the north comes down to the south, where you have an upcoming middle class who are actually requesting for high-quality food.
For farmers, refrigeration is vital for protecting crops after they're harvested and during transportation to prevent dehydration, a loss of nutrients and overall quality, especially in countries where humidity and temperatures are high.
I feel very bad when our vegetables go bad because even if we couldn't sell it, we still have to pay for transportation and the people that helps us harvest it. We started using Cold Hubs early last year and it has been very helpful to us.
We set out with a watchword that we are going to solve food spoilage due to lack of cooling. Our goal was to deploy 100% solar-powered walk-in cold rooms. And today, we've been able to deploy 15 operational, about to do 20 more. Last year, we saved 11,400 tons of food from going to spoilage. We were able to create 10 new jobs for women. We had 515 customers, and they were able to increase their income from $60 to $120 simply by saving those losses that were prevalent then. We want to deploy up to 1 million cold hubs all across Africa within the coming years. And that is what we want to do. And we know we can achieve it all across Africa because the need is there and the solution is here.
For those parts of the world where food production and supply happens on very tight margins, reducing waste during distribution could make all the difference.
And that is what makes us go to bed very happy.
I've seen how innovation at the farm and distribution stages of the food supply chain can reduce food loss. Next, I want to find out what manufacturers and retailers are doing to make a positive difference along our waste chain.
This is Hyde's in-house made fertilizer, and surprisingly, it's all from food scraps around the hotel.
This time on Follow the Food, I'm exploring the problem of food loss and waste throughout the food supply chain. With some estimates calculating that up to 40% of all food that's produced simply ends up on the scrap heap, and in the process produces 3.3 gigatons of climate change-inducing carbon dioxide. It's time to start radically rethinking how our food is produced if we're going to feed our growing population. So far, I've explored how our farmers are turning to tech to limit loss on the farm, and how affordable refrigeration during transportation means food stays fresher for longer. Next, I want to find out how we limit waste during the processing of our food. Manufacturing raw ingredients into food products creates a significant amount of waste, whether generated through machine inefficiency, human error, or overproduction. It all adds up, with one particular ingredient going to waste far more than any other: water. Industry consumes a lot of water. After agriculture, it's the biggest user of fresh water around the world. In the United States alone, industrial water use is about 82 billion liters every day. In Modesto, California, food giant Nestle have built a factory that's capable of extracting water from the materials it manufactures and is net zero in water waste.
Water security is a global problem, but can be felt locally. Our factory in Modesto is a good example of the implementation of technology that has enabled us to recycle water.
Using state-of-the-art technology, water is captured and recovered during the evaporation process of creating carnation evaporated milk, which is partially recycled back throughout the manufacturing process and redistributed back to the farming community for irrigation.
We now return more water to the watershed than we use. In fact, in 2020, we delivered 71 million gallons to the watershed. That's equivalent to filling 100 Olympic-sized swimming pools.
The last stage to examine in our waste chain is retail. Finally, our food has made it to us, the end consumer, and you'd think that at this stage, the chances of food waste would be over, straight onto our plates and into our mouths, but astonishingly, no. According to research conducted by the United Nations, an estimated 931 million tons of food available to consumers went into the waste bins of households, retailers, restaurants, and other food services during 2019. The weight of all that food roughly equals 23 million fully loaded 40-ton trucks, bumper to bumper, enough to circle the Earth 7 times. So I want to know what can be done in the final stages of the food supply chain to stop food that's not consumed ending up as wasted calories. Here at the Grand Hyatt Singapore, food waste is being given a new lease of life.
We cater to 1.2 to 1.8 million customers a year. That's around 3,000 to 5,000 meals a day. So you can only imagine that there's quite a bit of food wastage, unfortunately, being generated.
For large, densely packed cities like Singapore, food waste is a serious problem, increasing by 20% over the last 10 years. In 2020 alone, the city generated 665,000 tons of it. Now, though, there are plans to reduce this rise and begin to turn Singapore into a zero-waste city.
One key factor a lot of people might not know, we only have one landfill in Singapore, and this is filling quite rapidly. So the predictions are by 2035, there will be no longer space to continue putting more waste into that landfill.
Helping to do their bit to keep waste to a minimum, the hotel has begun using a revolutionary waste food recycling system.
We have 9 in-feed stations which are located back of house. The associates collect the remaining food wastage and the scraps, preparation wastes, and then bring it to the stewarding department. We pour actually the bin of food scraps into this in-feed station.
Accumulated across the hotel's restaurants, event spaces, and guest rooms, up to 1,000 kilos of food waste every day is literally vacuum sucked through hundreds of meters of pipes into the basement below.
All right. So the food will be vacuum slingshot all the way to the basement of the hotel, right through this large metal piping. Once the food has arrived, it goes under a very specific grinder and shredder, where larger bones or hard shells will be granulated into smaller items. From here, the food waste will go under a dewatering unit and conveyor belt. As we know, food is majority based on 50% of water, so right now already, we will have reduced our food waste by 50%.
Once enough waste is collected, the Biomax thermophilic digester begins the process of anaerobic digestion, a process through which bacteria breaks down organic matter.
Overnight, in 24 hours, we have perfectly organic, pathogen-free fertilizer. So for 1,000 kilograms of food waste, we can generate 300 kilograms of really beautiful organic fertilizer, which we utilize. And what is the great part of this as well? With that process, we save 55,000 trash bags a year and pretty much 100,000 Singapore dollars on waste haulage. So the transportation into incineration and to landfill, we completely cut as well.
Having been banished into the basement as waste, the new fertilizer is once again on the up and heading to the rooftop, where it's used to nourish these spectacular kitchen gardens.
All right, so here we are at our rooftop herb garden at Grand Heights, Singapore. We are actually right above our grand ballroom, where we grow our own fruits and vegetables and herbs. So it's a beautiful environment, gives you a real connection to earth and how it really takes to grow produce. And just right here in the city center, so it's quite amazing. I really believe in a sustainable business model. I think that's the way to move forward. I know we are in very difficult environments currently, but I think we are doing our very level best to protect the planet for future generations, absolutely.
It's often argued that we really don't need to do anything to improve crop yields because we already produce enough food to feed everyone on the planet. We just waste so much of it. Now, I have a lot of sympathy for that argument, but the reality is just not that simple because food waste is not only an enormous problem, it's also a really complex one. And there's no one guilty party. It happens throughout the production chain, including in our own homes. But the good news is there are all sorts of really innovative solutions that are happening all over the world. And although there aren't any quick fixes, anything we can do to reduce food waste will help make an important difference.